Hi, Lisa Gifford here, and today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable children reversible aprons, and we can do it all in 6 simple steps. The supplies you're going to need to be able to make the child's apron is you're going to need the Martelli template set, and it comes with 3 pieces. It has the pocket template, has the strap, and it has the main body that you're going to be placing on the fold. You're going to need 2 yards approximately of coordinating fabric, or because it's reversible, so you're going to need the 2 yards of fabric. It's about 2 yards. It's about shy of that. You're going to need a rotary cutter. I'm using the Martelli rotary cutters, and you see I'm going to use the 45, and I'm going to be using the 28 millimeter because it's going to work very well in this curve here. You're going to need some scissors, a marking tool or a pencil. I'm using today also the Martelli locking tweezers. They're going to work very well for turning it right side out. And then the snap pliers at Martelli, this is a brand new tool that they have. So we have the snap pliers and we also have the snaps. And there are so many in here in a variety of colors. Now you could also use, if you don't want to use the snaps, you can also use buttons by using buttons and buttonholes. You can also make this project by using Velcro. So those are the things that you're going to need to get started. Of course, a sewing machine, an iron is going to be very helpful, and that will get you everything that you need to make these adorable, reversible children's aprons. Step number 1 is cutting your fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out the 2 fabrics that I'm going to be working with because I'm going to cut them both at the same time. You could cut them individually, but I find it easier to just cut them both at the same time. And what I'm doing is I am placing the fold towards me. This is one side, and this is the other fabric that I've chosen. This is a fabric that I'm not quite sure who makes this. I want to say Windham Fabrics. These are just the most darling little gnomes. So I'm going to lay this out, and I'm going to talk about this one for a minute because this one is a directional fabric. So you want to pay attention to the direction that your fabric is going because you have to be able to lay your template on the fold, and this is the side that actually will say fold, and you want to be sure that it's going in the right directions. So by having the fold, to me, it had it going in the right direction. Be sure to place this fold on the folds. You don't want to have it this way, or you don't want to have it on the fold over here, and then your actual fabric will be upside down. So we're going to place it on the fold. I've got it all lined up here. And I'm going to slide it down just a little bit so I can get it all in the screen. We're going to place it back on the fold. And see, this is where I'm showing you. You don't quite need a full yard. I've got a little over a yard here, but this template is probably only about 30 inches. So if you have something that's just shy of a yard, you just need 2 of them. So I've got it on my fold, and I'm going to be kneading this piece right here, and I'm going to be using this section right here. I'm going to be using this for my pocket, and then this is just extra that's over here. And the reason why I'm telling you that, because I don't want you to take the strap and put it down here, because if you're using a directional fabric, you're going to see when you go to attach the strap, it's going to be going in the wrong direction. So you're going to want to place your strap template right here, and then I'm going to show you how I'll be using this section right here in creating my pockets. And so it will be this long piece right here that's going to be used for the pockets. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get this all cut out. And I can use the regular 45 millimeter for most of the cutting, but I'll switch to the 28 when I do this curve right here and this curve right here. I'll just go ahead and just cut that off to the top. Now this is what I'm going to set this aside. This is what I'm going to be using for the pocket. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch to my 28 millimeter. So I've got some curves here. Don't throw that away, you need that. And set these aside. Now we're not going to lift up the template yet because that's going to be a section that we're going to be marking. That's going to be step 2. So finish with this one. Now I'm going to take my strap template and I'm just going to set it on here. And now I'm going to go ahead and get it cut out. I'm kind of looking at these little motifs right here. I kind of want these to be in the middle of my strap. All right, set those aside. Now here's the pocket. Now I want the motifs to be going in the direction like this is the way the pocket is, this is the top of the pocket. So I'm going to do the 2 pieces individually and I'm going to fold this in half. And if this was to be my outside, then I'm going to set my template on here on the very edge. Now, into the selvage here, but that's going to be caught up in my seam. So I'm looking at a little bit at my motifs and seeing which ones I want to be sure that's in the outside of my pocket. Kind of liking that look right there. So I'm going to slide it down just a little bit because I want this fold. I'm going to be doing this pocket where we're going to be putting the right sides together and then we're going to sew it all the way around, leave it open and flipping it out. So I'll have this fold that's going to be on the top of the pocket. So I'm going to actually place this edge on the fold and this edge against my area that I had cut. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I've got both sides, that it was long enough on the back side. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. And it is cutting into the selvage. When I sew that 1/4 inch all the way around, it's going to take that in. So here's my first one. And because of the directional fabric, I do it just like that. I'm looking at the directional, picking out an area that I want to be in the motif, kind of liking this right here. So I'm going to fold this down, lining up my edges. Again, now I'm going to put this edge against this cut area, match it up against the fold. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this one out. Again, making sure, yep. Should have checked that before I cut it. All right. So now here is the pockets for the one side. And now I'm going to go ahead and just fold this over. And we're going to go ahead and get the cutting for the other 2 pockets. Matching up my cut edge, lining it up against the fold. And I'm going to cut both of these out at the same time. And so now I have both of my pockets for the other side. I'm going to go ahead and set these aside. And that's everything that we need to do for step number 1 for our cutting. Now for step 2, we're going to be marking the places for our pocket. I'm going to take a marking pencil. I'm just using just a regular pencil, and you could use whatever marking tool that you want. And what I'm doing is I'm not going to be drawing this whole triangle here. I'm just going to be getting these outer edges because you can see this is where your pocket is going to be. So this is the top and the sides of your pocket. So I'm just kind of marking this here and here on this piece here. Now I'm going to keep everything in place. I'm just going to lift up my template. There's my marks. So now I'm going to just fold this back out of the way, keeping everything here, and I'm bringing my template back in and I'm lining it up against my curves here. Making sure I got this out of the way enough. So now I can see there's my fabric number 2 underneath here. So I'm getting everything all lined back up. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark this side. I'm going to go ahead and remove my template. So there's my 2 marks. Now I'm going to take my fabric, put it back together, smooth everything all out. Now I'm just going to flip it over, grabbing both of them and flip them over. And get everything all smoothed out. And we're going to be doing the exact same thing, but now I'm going to take my template and I'm flipping it over. So this is how I'm going to get the other sides done. So I'm lining up my curves and my edges, curves and edges here, and the bottom, making sure everything all positioned. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mark here and here. Now I'm just going to take this piece, the folded side, I'm just going to pull it back, grab the template again, and place it on. Lining up my edges, making sure I got my curves and the straps placement and the bottom. There's my marks. It's looking pretty good. And now I have all 2 pieces marked on both sides. And that concludes step 2. Step 3 is a lot of sewing. The first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be prepping our pockets. We're going to be sewing the seams on the bottom. And then we'll be attaching the straps onto our main body pieces. So I usually start by just taking my 2 pieces and I'm going to take them over there and I'm going to serge the bottom. If you have a serger, it'd be great. Just serge the bottom, and then what I'll do is I'll fold it up about 1/2 of an inch and then I'll sew it all the way down. That's completely enclosing that raw edge. While I'm at the sewing machine, I will then take my pocket pieces and I will place them, fold them so that they are right sides together. And I'm going to do all 4 pieces and I'm going to sew all the way around, starting from here, going all the way around, and I'm going to leave an opening right here because then I'll flip it out and then this will be placed onto your main body and then you're going to stitch these down. And then the last thing will be attaching the straps. You'll be attaching the straps onto this long piece right here. And so you'll be putting them on right sides together and sewing them across. So there's just a little bit of sewing here, but that's the longest step is step number 3. So we're going to go ahead and get everything started and go to the serger and the sewing machine and get started. So I got my pieces and I went ahead and opened them up, and all I'm doing is I'm just serging all the way across the bottom. Now if you don't have a serger, you can just do a zigzag stitch, and that way it would kind of enclose that seam up a little bit, because the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over about 1/2 of an inch and then we'll be stitching that down. But I like using a serger, and even though it's got a dark thread, it's not even going to be seen. I'm going to do this to both of the pieces. This was noisy. I'll take that off. The first one, and we'll get the second one done. That's all I'm doing with the serger. We're going to be getting all 4 of our pockets done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take piece, and I'm just going to place it right sides together, matching up my edges. And if you want to use some pins or some clips to hold everything in place, you can easily do that. I'm going to start sewing at the fold, and I'm going to go all the way around at a 1/4 inch, pivot, and I'm going to come all the way up, and then I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to leave about an 1.5 to 2 inch opening, and then I'll start back up, and then I'll sew to the end. And I'm going to repeat that for all 4 of these, the pockets. And this is where I'm leaving my little opening there. All right, so I just left this little opening, and what I'm going to do is there's a little clip right here, the point. I like to trim that off just a little bit before I go ahead and I flip it all the way out. So let me just go ahead and get all 4 of these. And now here's showing me where I've got that selvage. So I am going to be sure I sew a 1/4 inch, and it should completely encompass all of that right there. And it caught it on both sides. This one's a little bit wider. So I'm going to make that the other side so I can make sure to close that in completely. All right, so I got all of the pockets sewed. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to the main body pieces, and we're going to go ahead and get our bottom part seamed up. Now, you could take this over to the iron, and you could roll it up and just kind of press it, but I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I'm looking at about a 1/2 inch, and if you wanted it to be a wider hem, you could easily do that. But I'm just looking at it to be about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to guide it under there, and I'm going to place my needle. My stitching is going to be somewhere in the serged sewing line. I roll it up enough so that the edge of my foot is running along the fold, and the needle is right there onto the edge of the, right there in the middle of the serged line. All right, so it's just a nice pretty little stitch line going all the way across, and I'm going to repeat that for the other one, and just try to make sure that you get them pretty identical in how much you're folding it over. And while you got your pieces here, you can go ahead and get your straps and get them sewed on. I put the straps onto the long pieces right here. So I go ahead and have it right sides together. Take one of my straps. I'm kind of wanting it to be going in the same orientation, and they should be. And then I'll just place it on here, right sides together, and I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way across. You can almost do a little chain piece on this one. Just kind of hold it there and get your next one on. Making sure they're all going in the right direction, and then right sides together. And then just clip those apart. Okay, so now we're going to finish up the pockets. So I'm going to take each pocket, I'm going to go ahead and clip the corners, or that little point off the edge of each one, and then we're going to flip them out, and then I'm going to do a top stitch across that fold. And then we'll be placing them onto the main body and then zigzag stitching those down. And if you have something to kind of help press out your point, the main point that you're going to press out is that one on the bottom. Kind of roll it so it gets all out there. Now I'm not worrying about stitching up this close, because when I lay it onto the main body of when I place this pocket onto the actual apron, then when I go to zigzag this down, it's going to close up that opening. So you could easily, you could finger press this, or you could take this to your iron and you could press this opening nice and closed. But what I found was a nice little touch to this pocket was just go ahead and do a pretty little top stitch right here across the fold, and I do that on each one of them. And just use whatever turning tool or actually help to press out your edges and get your points all nice and sharp. Same thing here, I'm just going to kind of pinch it, just kind of pull it and tuck that in there. And then I'm just going to give it a good finger press. And that's going to be hidden under the zigzag. Make sure you got all your points out. There's the second one. Clipping this little edge here, being sure not to cut into my stitches. So there is the side that's going to be on the outside. If you notice on the back side, they're upside down. So you know this is going to be on the inside of the pocket. This will be the outside. There's my opening. Just kind of pinch it and then give it a good finger press, making sure this side's all the way out. Let's hit this right here. Pocket number 3 and one more to go. There's my seam. Kind of pinch it and pull it, tuck it in there and finger press. All right, so that is all the sewing for this part. We're going to go back over to the cutting table, and I'm going to show you how to we're going to get these pockets placed onto the apron, and then we'll be coming back here and we'll be doing our zigzag stitch to stitch it all down. Now that you have all of your pockets all turned and finger pressed out, now we're going to go ahead and do a nice top stitch across the top of each one of these pockets. It's not a step that you have to do, but it just makes it look a little bit nicer. And then when we get that done, we're going to go ahead and take it over to the cutting table, and I'm going to lay it all out, so I'm going to show you how to place it onto the main body of the apron so that we can go ahead and zigzag those down. So I'm going to do a top stitch of about 1/8 of an inch, and I like to have a wider stitch length, so I'm probably going to set it at about 3.1. We're going to just do 1/8 inch all the way across. I'm going to kind of like chain piece all these through. This could be one of those times that if you wanted to play with your machine and do decorative stitches, if you had a real pretty snowflake pattern or something, that would be to put on this. But this would be one of those opportunities where you could do some decorative stitching here. Now just open up your large apron pieces and look for your marks for your pocket placement. Take your pocket piece and just kind of set it right there. The top is going to go right there into those edges here. And once I get it in there, I go ahead and just slide it up just a little bit so I can completely cover up my pencil marks. And then just place a couple of pins just to hold it in place. Because we're going to do a zigzag stitch all the way around. Keep in mind that you got one side that needs to be stitched closed, and mine's right here. So I'll just zigzag all the way around and it will close that up for me. So I've got it centered in here, and I'm just going to slide it up just a little bit to completely cover my pencil mark. And repeat that for your second piece. Now, when you're using a directional fabric, just be sure to place it so that your direction is the direction you want it to be. In my case, I don't want my gnomes to be upside down. I want them to be right side up. So I've got them again placed right there on those marks, bringing it up just a touch to cover it, and then placing in a couple of pins. Paying attention to where my open seam is, which I believe it's right here, so I'll be sure to cover that up. Okay, so then now we're just going to stitch all the way around with a zigzag all the way around. Do that on both pieces. And then the next step is where we're going to take both pieces right sides together and we're going to start sewing them. So I've got it all laid out to start doing my zigzag, and I'm doing it at a 4 instead of the normal 3. I'm doing it at a 4, so I want it to be a little bit wider, and then I also want my stitches to be a little bit closer. So I've brought that in, so I've got a closer, tighter stitch, but a little bit wider. And then I want you to pay attention to something else. I want you to make sure that your straps are completely out of the way, because I don't want you to inadvertently zigzag one of these straps underneath. Don't ask me how I know that. I think Sherry had mentioned it in one of her videos, and I listened, but I didn't listen well enough and did the exact same thing she told me not to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start zigzagging here, and I'm going to pay attention that I've got this little seam right here I've got to catch in here. So what I do is I just start, I do a little back tack, and then I'm just going to go and pivot all the way around. Okay, so that's what we do to get all of our pockets all sewed on. The next thing I like to do is I'm going to go back to the cutting table and I'm going to lay these right sides together, and then we're going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. Okay, so the next step is we're going to lay these two pieces right sides together so that we can do our stitching, getting it all put together to make our apron. Now, I wanted to take a minute and talk about the straps. So you're going to need to decide which kind of a strap is it that you want. If you look at this one right here, what I had done was I had completely sewed the ends closed when I was stitching all the way around. So then when I pushed it all the way out, when I flipped it to the right sides out, this was a closed opening. So I had added the snaps onto here and onto here. And because it's in reverse, the snaps can go either way. So if I had it going this way, then my snap would be like here. So it'd be a little bit of an overhang either in the back or in the front. So that was the one way I have done it. But then the other way is what I want to show you with this one here. With this one, I have it where I sewed it all the way closed where it's crisscrossed in the back. So now the straps, the actual snaps are still on there, but now you're having to bring it up, and you're going to I'm going to pull this around. So if I wanted to make it shorter, then I bring this up and I attach it here to make it shorter. So it's a way if you're going to be placing the snap so that you could make it shorter. So either way is fine. This way you're not having to deal with the two different pieces pulling around. This way you just loop it over your shoulders, and then you adjust it by having this snap go into, say, this one up here. So like this one needs to go, so this would be how it would be adjusted here on the back. So this just be this loop here on the back. So you could also make it where it be buttonholes. I could see that you could easily take, like if you was to do this one here, I would have maybe a button here, and then I would have buttonholes on here, or you could have this be the buttonhole, and then you could have a bunch of buttons going across here. So you could do either way. I've also thought that Velcro would be a good way. You could have the one piece right here, and then the longer piece, and then you would just slide this under to adjust it with Velcro. So there's several different options that you could use. So I think the one that I'm going to do today is where it's going to be completely closed in. But if you were to do it, there's something I need for you to pay attention to when we go to sewing this. So I got my piece laid out here, and before you even go to putting everything together, I like to take where I put my seams together, the straps, I like to go ahead and open up that seam and just kind of finger press it open. It's easier for lining everything up and you're not dealing with a bulk on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and finger press this one open, and I'll do it also on the other one. And I've got it laying right side up. Then I'm going to take the second one and I'm going to place it right side down, matching up my curves and everything. Now this is where some clips would work really good, or if you wanted to pin it. So I'm just putting these together. I got this side finger pressed open, so I can just kind of match up these seams right here. And I'll do that for all of them. So that's where I like to put some clips, is I go to where the seam is pressed open, I'll put a clip right here, or pin it, just so that's holding it in place. and just match up all your edges. The one cool thing about these Martelli templates is so precise, everything just fits together so wonderfully. And I go ahead and match up everything all the way around. Move it around a little bit. Get everything all smoothed out. So I'm going to put a pin up here where this is lined up. Pull this a little bit more towards me. And going back to the strap here, line up these edges, my curve, make sure these are all finger pressed open. I like to match up that seam right there and pin or clip it. If you're going to do the one where you have the long straps that they're not going to be joined together, then you're just going to sew all the way around here. You're also going to go across there. You're just going to sew all the way down, and you're just sewing all the way around to flip it out. And you're going to leave the opening on the bottom. You're not sewing that across because that's how we flip it out. If you're going to do where you want the straps to be connected, then what I want you to do is don't sew the first inch, inch and a half, maybe even 2 inches. Don't sew that part right there, because then we're going to put them together and so it'll look like a seamless seam. So I like to leave, if I'm going to leave it where it's not being done, where it's not going to be completely closed in, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to leave this side open. You're going to leave this open by about an inch, inch and a half, because what you're going to do, say you've got them all sewed, you've got this where this part's not sewn. So if this is the strap that you're going to be attaching and it's not sewn, so then you're going to put this right sides together, sew it, and then you'll put this right sides together and then sew it. So then they'll be like that, and then you just go ahead and sew it closed. But what you'll do is, because you'll be doing that after it's already been flipped out, so then you'll just do your top stitch and it'll close that up for you, if that makes sense. But today I'm just going to show you doing it where we're just going to sew all the way around and not worry about closing that up. All right, so next thing is just take it to the sewing machine, sew it all the way around, and that once we get this sewn, this will finish step 3. Got the machine set up at 1/4 of an inch, and I do have it at a 1.8, and we're just doing 1/4 of an inch all the way around till we get to the other side. Okay, so I got this sewed all the way around, and I did something a little bit different. You can see where I had sewed up all the way around on these edges right here, because we're going to be flipping this out, but it gets a little difficult to do. So I actually left this side open, and we're going to use our new little Martelli turning tool, which is our locking tweezers, and we're going to see how well that is to get this turned. So this concludes step 3. We'll be starting step 4 next. All right, step 4 is where we're going to be turning it right side out, and we're going to be doing the pressing. So this one's not too hard of a step. So I had done all of these where I had sewed them closed across the top. This one I had done open, but I want to show you the difference. So I'm going to be using our locking tweezers, and I'm going to show you, if you left your seam open, say you wanted to do where you're connecting the straps. So you just take your locking tweezers and you're going to just kind of drop it in there between the two pieces of between the two right sides together. You're just going to drop it in between. And what I do is I just kind of bunch up the fabric into that tweezers, and then I squeeze it closed. And then there's this little washer or something like right here at the end, so it grabs the fabric, and then you slide this washer up and it's going to hold it in place for you to be able to do your turning. So I'm going to set it inside, get towards grabbing some of the fabric, and I'm going to slide. I can feel that little washer that's in there. I'm just going to slide it up, and now it's locked onto my fabric. So then you just kind of feed it through. You kind of just bunch up your fabric onto the edge of it. When you get close to the bottom, then you're just going to reach in there and you're going to grab that tweezer and you're going to pull it through. And you'll just pull it all the way out, then take the washer, slide it back down, and now you got one strap out. Now the other two straps are really not that difficult to get them out. They're quite a bit shorter. It's just the really long one that's a little bit harder. So I'm going to grab my little hair tool here, and I'm going to push out the two middle ones. Now one of the things I didn't do, I didn't clip my corners, and you could easily just go in there and take the time to clip your corners. I didn't get my corners clipped on this one. I totally forgot. All right, so I'm getting the other one of the middle straps out. And now we got the last one. So the difference with this one was we didn't leave it open. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our little tweezer here. There's no opening for you to slide it in. So we're going to go ahead and just drop it down inside. I'm going to have the points going in. I'm just going to drop it in there and let it go all the way to the end. Get it all the way to the very bottom. All right, so now I feel the tweezer is in there and it's open. So I'm just going to take a piece of the fabric, pinch it into there, find that little washer that's right there at the bottom and push it up, and do the same thing. Just kind of gather up your fabric onto that tweezer, or onto the locking tweezer. And then reach in there and find it. And here it is. And then pull it through. Now, sometimes if it gets a little tight for you, you could grab something in here, maybe push it in here and maybe give you a little leverage, but it goes through pretty quickly. And slide the washer back down, and then it's going to open it back up. It's going to feel its way through all the way to the top. I'm just rolling it to push out my corners. So then the next step is I need for you to just take it to your ironing table, and you're going to press everything nice and flat. I'm going to also go ahead and get this little seam here. Now, if you wanted to, you could have clipped your curves. If you wanted to clip your curves, you could have clipped your curves here, you clipped your curves here. I didn't see that it was really necessary, but you could go ahead and clip your curves. But I like to go ahead and give it a good press, because the next step is we're actually going to top stitch this all the way around. Step 5 is where we're going to be doing our top stitching. But I do wanted to point something out. On our straps right here that you see that are quite long, there is no hard fast rule that says that you have to put them on this piece here. You could have attached these to this piece right here instead of on the longer piece. And the reason why you might have wanted to do that, so that when you put on your step 6, when we go to put on the snaps, they would be more further toward the back. So I just wanted to clarify that you could have actually put these onto these shorter pieces right here, and then the snaps would be more towards the back. But I prefer them to be on the longer pieces. So now we're going to start with going to the sewing machine, and now I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, stitching all the way around. So that will be our step 5 top stitching. A lot of machines have different feet that goes with their machines. I have two in my hand. One, this one here, is the O foot for the Janome 7. It is the 1/4 inch foot, and it has this little guide that runs along the edge so that it will help you make your 1/4 inch seams, and your thread and your fabric doesn't go beyond it. This machine also has a foot called the G foot, which is the blind hem foot, which also has a guide, but it's more in the middle. So you could use either one of these feet or not. You could just go ahead and just sew your 1/8 inch by knowing what your guide is based on the foot that you're using. I have used the O foot, the 1/4 inch foot, many times and have just slid my needle over so I can be sure to get that perfect little 1/8 of an inch. But this one allows me to get it just a little bit closer. So I'm going to use the blind hem foot, and I'm going to make sure I have my needle all the way over as far as I can get it without it going too far over. So you kind of got to watch the adjustment on where your needle placement is so that you don't be hitting anything that you don't want to be doing it. And then my fabric's going to just glide along this edge right here, and it's going to give me that perfect little 1/8 of an inch or so, and it's going to be consistent all the way around. Another thing that I'm going to do is I like to also increase my stitch length. I think it's just a little bit prettier than just having 1.8. A 1.8. I actually have this one at a 3.3. I like a larger stitch length when I'm doing a top stitch. And I'm just using a basic white. So what I had done, I've got my needle slid all the way over to 0.5, and I'm using the blind hem stitch foot for this one. And I'm just going to start on one side, and I'm just going to top stitch all the way around as if when we were sewing it all together. And there, I got all the top stitching done. It just looks really nice and real professional looking. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start step 6, and it is going to be using our snap gun. Now again, your step 6 could be different. You might decide to do buttons, or you might decide to do Velcro. I'm using the Martelli snaps. So what I am doing is, because it is double-sided, I'm going to put 2 on each piece. I'm going to have one that's going on top and one that's going to go on the bottom. And what I had done was I actually had what is called the male part on the tops. So I'm going to have two males here, and then on the long straps I'm going to add the female pieces. Now, because they crisscross in the back, what I'm doing is I'm going to put blue here, and then blue on this one, and then gray on this one, and then it's going to be gray on the other straps. So you will see that you're going to connect the blues to blues and the grays to the grays, or whatever color combination that you want to do. So the components to do the male part is you're going to have your one that looks like a thumbtack, and then you have your other piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and place one. I'm going to kind of center it right here, and I'm just going to push it through. It takes just a second to push it through. If I don't like that look, if I needed to move it over just a little bit, I wanted it to be a little bit more centered, you can easily just pop it out and recenter it. So that's where that one's going to be. And I've got my male part. So it goes right there on the back side. You just kind of set it over, center it over top of the little, the point part of like the thumbtack. And then to work this machine, this black part right here, this is where the head of the thumbtack section goes in, and then this presses down onto it. It's actually taking the pointed part of the thumbtack and kind of smushing it down, and that's what's going to hold that in place. So I just kind of lay it on here, kind of have it centered, and just give it a squeeze. And let me tell you, they are in there pretty darn good. because I had gotten one wrong and it took me a good bit to cut it off of there. So I've got this one on the upside, so now I'm just going to kind of turn it, and then right below it I'm going to do the exact same male piece, and I'm just going to press it in. This is because it's the reversible, and grab another one of the male pieces, and I'm going to do it in the opposite side. Exact same thing, just now we're going to be having two on each one. Getting it on here, and then just press it down. So that's this one. Now because the opposite piece is this, so I'm going to grab this one, and now I got my how I centered where I wanted my female pieces to be was I said, okay, I want one at the end, and I probably want one just on the edge of this seam right here. So I put one here, and then I found my middle, and I put one here, and then I did it on the other side too. So this is the gray. So I'm going to go ahead and put one at the top, find my center, put it in, and now we're going to find the female part, and I'm going to set it on here, and then you do it just like you do the other one. So I'm going to press that down. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab another one of the pieces, the thumbtack piece, and I'm going to push it through, and then get another female and put it on the other side and tighten that down. I got it centered on there right. All right, so there's the gray. I'm just going to do those two right now. Now we're going to go ahead and do my blue. Same thing. First one, I'm going to put my tack in here. Grab one of the male pieces. And then repeat it for the other side. And knowing that this is the opposite, I'm going to grab one of the thumbtack ones and do the same thing. Grab a female part, and then a second one. And you can put these anywhere you want onto your straps, but it seemed to be, I wanted to be a little consistent, so I would put one here, and then I would find my middle, and then I would put two more right here. But that's how easy it is to use the snaps, and like I said, they are on there. So once you connect that, they don't come undone. They are pretty tight on there. So that is showing you all 6 steps on how we make the child apron. And it is reversible. So you got this pretty side here, but then you also have this pretty side on this side. Okay, well, thank you everybody for being with me today as we made our child size apron, and it's reversible. And as you can see, I've got 2 models with me. I've got Carly and I've got little Aiden, and he's actually wearing the one that we actually made today. And you can see by having the adjustable strap, his is a little bit more drawn up, and it's just kind of tucked away on the inside and the front. And it would be like that even if you flipped it to the other side. And the reason, again, why I did the 2 different color of the snaps is so that you can coordinate them when you're crisscrossing them in the back. So I'm going to have them both kind of do a little turn around. And you can see where they crisscross in the back with the color coordinating coming front. All right, there you go. So what do you guys think about them?
Yeah, I like them. I like it.
Yep, they like them quite a bit. And again, this one here is done where I did the straps a little bit different, but it also has the snaps on it, and you just pull them up and it would loop there in the back. This one here, which you hadn't seen until now, is just no snaps on it at all. So this is basically done before it does the snaps as this one, where it would be once I get the snaps on it, it would be looped in the back. But these are very quick and easy to make, literally from the time I start sewing to the time I complete it, maybe about an hour. But they go together quite nicely. And what I love about them is that they're also truly reversible. You can just flip them around to the other side and they're reversible. And I think these are great projects that they could make for whether they're helping you in the kitchen or if they're doing crafts like Play-Doh or paint. I remember when I was a kid having to wear an apron for one of the projects that we did at school, but we didn't have those. They told us to bring one of our dad's t-shirts, and I'm sure I'm really speaking my age when I say that because there's a lot of us that probably did that when we had art in class. But anyway, I'm so glad that you're able to see them in the different sizes. Aiden's a little bit smaller than Carly, but hey, they're actually pretty close to the same age, right? So what do you guys think? Think you'd like to have some more of these made?
Yes.
All right.
But our color.
A different color? What color would you like? Pink and purple? Yeah, of course. And what would you like?
This one.
He likes this one. All right. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining me today as we made our child size apron, this reversible. You can always find these templates at martellinotions.com. If you have any questions with anything at all, please feel free to email me at quiltingwithlisa@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much. Enjoy this. It's going to be a lot of fun to make. Make them with your kids. Make them with your grandkids. It's going to be so much fun. Again, martellinotions.com. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.